Just going to be reading Witch King by Martha Wells. Can't really prop this up very well. From the breakout superstar author of Murderbot comes a remarkable story of power and friendship, of trust and betrayal, and the families we choose. I didn't know you were a demon. You idiot! I'm the demon. After being murdered, his consciousness dormant and unaware of the passing of time while confined in an elaborate water trap, Kai wakes to find a lesser mage attempting to harness Kai's magic to his own advantage. That was never going to go well. But why was Kai imprisoned in the first place? What has changed in the world since his assassination? And why does the Rising World Coalition appear to be growing in influence? Kai will need to pull his allies close and draw on all his pain magic if he is to answer even the least of these questions. He's not going to like the answer. Let's see if I can zoom in. Is that just going to zoom in? A little bit. Cool, a map. I hate it when they put words in the middle of the map so that you can't actually read that. Conventiculum of the Immortals. Chapter 1. I'll zoom back out. That sounds like it's a kind of thing that would give you a heart attack, but okay. Astringent. Her voice is astringent. Let me just read this. Her mental voice astringent. Zedi said, "Take your time, Kai. Wherever I am, I can't see. I can't move. I'm breathing, but I can't feel my chest move." You could hear the suppressed fear as she added, "I can't find Teren. She doesn't answer." Why is her voice astringent? What is astringent supposed to be implying there? That was page 1. That's pretty stupid and overpowered, I have to say. The thing that's stupid is the demon guy gets his power from pain, so it's just gonna make him ridiculously overpowered, and means Martha Wells has even less or more excuses not to let anybody become physically disabled. Because if you're injured, that the pain will just make him be able to heal you. The skin of his hands was a familiar, warm brown, but Martha Wells is 100% overjoyed to let a cis white man play Murderbot. So when this gets adapted, we'll see this character get whitewashed, and Martha Wells will cheer it on because she's a fucking racist who just tokenizes people in the books and then will literally shill for the trillion-dollar corporation that is whitewashing her own protagonist. She doesn't actually fucking care about minorities or about actually being anti-racist. If she did, she would have nothing to fucking do with the Apple adaptation except scorn for literally whitewashing the goddamn protagonist. Can't help but do this. Of course you can't. Mm-hmm. See, I fucking knew it. We are only on page 4. Let's see. The temporary power well created by Kai's own pain restored his new body. Bones knit and shifted back into place. A burst organ pulled itself together. The broken nose clicked into alignment. Splintered pieces of jawbone grew into new teeth, with a jabbing burst of pain that almost collapsed him to the floor. He breathed through it until his blood stopped bubbling, then shoved his jaw back until it clicked and held. And now that pain from the healing being painful is going to literally give him more power. Because, God forbid, we not be ableist. Why are they suddenly mariners? They're just the bad guys are suddenly being referred to as mariners out of nowhere. A mariner turned and strode toward them. When did we establish they were mariners? Says they wore clothing like the mariners along the southeastern archipelagos. That doesn't equate to they are mariners. Whatever. And we're now assuming all of their genders. Because of course we are. Martha Wells doesn't actually give a fuck about trans people at all. A woman mariner protested. Why are they women now? She literally will pretend, oh, I'm not assuming anybody's gender, and then immediately assumes people's genders. Because, she is actually a bigot. Like, it's not actually difficult. You don't have to know the genders of the bad guys, because I guarantee you, like, all of these people are going to be dead in, like, 10 pages or less, probably. So we literally don't need to know if they're men or women or the token non-binary people. So why are you telling us, Martha? You made a whole big deal about... Let me read that paragraph where they're clothes. 4 wore clothing like the mariners along the southeastern archipelagos, wide cotton pants gathered at the ankles, short open jackets, and broad leather belts. 2 also wore the long knee-length shirts more common to women of that area. So, yeah, it's just, we're going to assume everybody's genders based on their clothes. Because despite reading the Imperial Ratch, Martha Wells wants to assume everybody's genders. They were speaking a language, Imperial Araic too, the expositor correctly, and the mariners with a thick accent and slurred vowels. Why are you saying that there's a correct way to speak the language? Just say they spoke with an accent. It's like... That's a weird thing to say, but okay. Another mariner laughed and drew a long knife. He said, blah, blah, blah. He had a shallow prettiness that didn't reach past his tawny skin. That's weird. Exactly what I fucking predicted. Blah stepped forward and stabbed Kai through the heart. Kai fell back against the plinth. The pain blacked out his vision. The steel cleaving already abused flesh. As Taro moved away, Kai grabbed the knife. The edge cut into his fingers, and he pulled it out. He tossed it aside, ignoring the brief gush of blood down his chest as his flesh wove itself back together. The new power well blossoming under his skin pulsed like a second heart. Now, Kai said, grinning as he shoved the veil aside. Which one of you wants to go first? And it's like, wow. Yeah, who could have possibly foreseen that Martha Wells would use this to make her characters literally uninjurable, because every time they get hurt, that literally just gives this fucker the power to heal it instantly. So her ableism is just gonna keep increasing because she doesn't actually care about physically disabled people. She doesn't even care about neurodivergent people unless they're the few specific kinds that she thinks are relatable. Boo, why are you... So the protagonist already has the unstoppable ability to use pain for healing, and now he can hypnotize people. Come here, Taro, Kai said, focusing his will, his smile pulling at tendon and bone that was still tender after its restoration. Caught like a petal in amber, Taro took He should be named Taro after the root, but it's not. Took stiff steps towards him, resisting with all his mental strength, which sadly for him was not nearly adequate. Why are you giving him this ability to? The expositor tried to cast an intention, something to bind Kai's new body, because using the word spell is too good for Martha Wells. Or Martha Wells is too good for using established fucking terms. But the pain of being stabbed had filled Kai with terrible power. Of course it did. Of course it did. And he can use this pain power not only to heal, not only to mind control people, he can use it to freeze all of them in place. Well, you don't have to tell us that explicitly, but whatever. Kai stood and backed away, almost stepping on the girl, who had been hovering close behind him. It said interesting things about her character, or maybe her recent past, that she found him less terrifying than anything else that might be in this place. And it's like, it's not a thing you have to tell us. You can just leave us to figure that out. We get a description of Ziti. Blah, blah, blah. She had the same deep brown skin, high forehead, and long, straight nose. Her dark hair drawn back in dozens of braided rows the way she preferred to wear it. He was almost choking with relief, and it made his voice thick. "You're safe, Ziti." His actual concern for her is not actually clearly expressed through the rest of it, though. We're just being told he's relieved and was almost panicking. We don't actually get that sensation through the narration. He was still so relieved it was hard to think, but that's not actually expressed in the narration, or the narrative, whatever you want to call it, the descriptions. What boots? Wait, Kai asks the girl a question. She says, "I guess?" She had seated herself on the floor to pull the boots on, biting her lip as she wrapped the leather flaps over bruises and broken toes. What are you talking about? What? When was she given boots, and why is she only putting them on now? Okay, he threw some boots at her 3 pages ago, and then didn't give her time to put them on, and now she's only now giving the opportunity to sit down and put them on. That's weird. And no mention of her. She was still carrying the boots he had thrown at her. Why are we just casually being told she has broken toes? Do you have any idea how painful a broken toe is? She's biting her lip as she wrapped the leather flaps over bruises and broken toes. Literally broken toes? How is she walking? What fucking sense does that make? Giving her something constructive to do would help ground her. Talking about ZD, it's like, you're just gonna therapy speak your way through this. So apparently he has a veil thing that seems to be embedded in his skull somehow, and he wants to get rid of it, even though pain gives him ultimate, endless, infinite levels of power. But whatever. Who needs logic? Like, and I don't think we're going to get an explanation for why he wants to get rid of this. Is there an actual limit to how much power you can have? They're being very mean to this poor, traumatized child. Go away, fruit fly. We were told that the thing was embedded in his skull, but now it just takes untangling from his hair, because I guess we're forgetting the part where we were saying it was embedded in his skull. Where do you come from, Sanja? The mouth of the sea of flowers, blah blah. Why didn't you ask me my name before? I didn't want it until you were ready to give it to me. Sure. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I would say, I presume it will get explained, but I've read reviews for this book, and they say that you wait for things to get explained. They never get explained. So here's this thing. As he started away, ZD said, Kai, you should check your heart for a pearl. He hesitated and shook his head. It's not there, ZD. Prove that to me, Kai, she persisted as he walked away. Prove it. Because we've already established that they have little tiny hardened drops of his blood forming a pearl in their hearts, which lets them have mental walkie-talkie telepathy. Okay, I'm going to pause so I can go to the bathroom, and we're on chapter 2. Okay, we're on chapter 2, which is page 15, 14. I have this balanced on my knees because there's nothing else for me to sit on. It's just a weird way of saying that. They're looting the bodies for clothes, and it says, he took a braided silk cord that probably had some great significance to Menelaus's family or culture, and used it to tie back the section of his hair that most wanted to fall forward into his face. It's like, you don't have to tell us that he's desecrating sacred cultural artifacts, but alright. There's like a little printing error here. There's a very faint line, like a quarter of the way through the page, just going up and down the page. And this book cost $28.99 new. And that's the guide price, so more than that. And there's printer errors. This is being written like it is the novelization / the fan fiction for a role-playing game like Skyrim, and that's not a compliment. Okay, so he has cut open his old dead body and found a silver white pearl inside. Are you gonna answer the fucking question? Okay, Sanja, the kid that they were being mean to, asks, how can you have something in your heart and not die? Kai says, "That's a good question. A better one is, how can I have a pearl in my heart and not know?" Are you gonna answer the fucking question? Ziti says, "I have one from Kai for protection. He gave it to me and I swallowed it." Not answering the question in any way. Just say it's magic. That's honestly a good enough fucking question. Answer. Someone we thought was a friend put the pearl in Kai's dead body's heart. Well, the body he fucking possessed doesn't fucking belong to him. But whatever. He has another power. There were no lights in the upper part of the curving stone stairwell, so Kai called an imp the size of a dragonfly, and they followed its darting glow upward. We weren't told there were imps flying around in here before. It's not like he's luring one closer. He's just summoning it out of nowhere. No explanation. So he can heal. He can brainwash, mind control, hypnotize, and freeze people in place, and also suck people's souls from their bodies so that they turn into a desiccated husk. And he can summon imps. No further explanation given. This kid is not. When behind him, Ziti was interrogating Sandra, which I might be pronouncing wrong. It could be pronounced Sonya. We don't fucking know because there's no pronunciation guide in the dramatis personae, whatever. When we got here, it was night, but they waited until morning. Sandra huffed critically. I guess they thought it was safer. Now that the body's memories had faded, he would never know anything more about the former occupant. Of all the things he had to be angry about at this moment, it should be a minor consideration. But it wasn't. So we are expressing anger over the person who used to inhabit this body that he just stole. But 7 books into the Murderbot Diaries, we're still expected to be fine with torturing other slaves. Make it make fucking sense. He could have taken longer to kill Menlis and his hirelings, but it wasn't like punishment ever fixed anything. Kai had been punished by eager experts, and it had just made him more determined. That's a weird thing to randomly throw in, but okay. they're supposed to be like climbing or something, but we're not actually getting any descriptions of what they're doing. They're just kind of internal monologuing and talking, and it's not very good. I guess they're climbing some stairs, but that's not clear. Do you know who I am, Sanja? Sanja? I'm just gonna say that name every which way. Kai asked. No, she admitted. I don't really know what a demon is. You're like an expositor? Just tell her, Kai. Then she got to it. Ziti said, then was too impatient. He's Kai Saran, the Witch King. Blah, blah. But that's just a story. Blah, blah, blah. They're at the top of the tower on the invisible stairs that weren't described that they were supposed to be climbing this whole time. Kai flung out his arms and twirled, taking a deep breath of wind with a hint of storm rain to it. He hadn't realized how the weight of the surrounding water and the enclosed space had worn on him until now, and yeah, that wasn't expressed in the narration at all. He released the light imp with a wave. It sped away so fast it winked out of sight. Imps weren't keen on water and enclosed spaces either. But where did he get the fucking imp? Where did it come from? Did he just summon it out of thin air? Did he just teleport some random imp from somewhere? And it has to come to him? Like... Yeah, we're just going to keep using the word intention instead of spell, and it's irritating. Zedi seems to magically know where they are because of reasons. Zedi can fly. Also, we're describing the wind very suddenly as wind devils, who are playfully plucking at Zedi's clothes and hair. And where'd it go? Zedi stepped into the wind devil that opened like a flower for her. It's not flying, it's entity manipulation, Zedi corrected in annoyance. We're not going to get an explanation for what wind devils are, apparently, but I guess they're just invisible wind spirits that will carry her places. They're climbing down into a giant upside-down shell that is on the back of a whale. Or maybe it's not upside down, it's weird. Kai went down the spiral steps into the shell's pearly interior. The steps led to the shell's uppermost chamber. Whatever. I will say, for Martha Wells, she just loves pulling shit out of a hat and then never does anything with it. So you might think, oh, there's a whale that has a giant shell on the back that people use for transportation. That's really cool. We'll probably never see one ever again once they get off of this one, because that's how she usually does things. We're just treating this like it's a fan fiction or the sequel to a book everybody else has already read. Here's this random sentence from nowhere. The expositors originally conscripted and trained for the hierarch's use had survived long... There's fruit flies flying around. I don't know why they have fruit flies here. Go the fuck away. The expositors originally conscripted and trained for the hierarch's use had survived long enough to pass their knowledge along to apprentices. Whoever had taught Menlis had let him think he was powerful enough to enter a sealed tomb, meant as a trap for the immortal Witch King. Possibly it had been meant as an elaborate method of murder. Sanja asks Zedi, is he your husband? And Zedi responds, devils of the four winds, no. We're old friends. I don't think that helped at all. He felt the whale's mind, old and impatient and simmering with a slow fury at its captivity. He wove his way inside and told it, I want to ride you even less than you want to carry me. If you take us for a time to the southeast, first to the fire underwater and then to a mortal port, I'll break the chains that hold this thing atop you and send you on your way. I want to enslave you even less than you want to be enslaved. Now, be my fucking slave and then I'll let you go. And it's like, the answer came back as, why should I trust? Always a good question, Kai replied. I wore chains once, too. Well, so the fuck did Murderbot, and yet Murderbot is still murdering and torturing other slaves to death 7 books into the series, Martha Wells. So forgive me for not fucking thinking that matters. He sent the whale an image, a memory, of the old cageling demon court, those are all capital letters, by the way, in the summer halls of the hierarchs, also all capital letters, how he had huddled there with the diamond chains around his throat and wrists, the perpetual rain soaking his ragged clothes, searing his skin. All right, why are you acting like this is a sequel to a book that doesn't fucking exist? Referencing that like that is treating this like a sequel. The whale believes him. Oh, he was a slave once too, so that means I should trust him, even though that doesn't apply to Murderbot. But whatever. Whatever mortal thought this was a good idea to travel as a masochist, as well as uncaring of the captive whale's pain. You're literally one to fucking talk. You literally still want us to be okay with the protagonist torturing slaves to death in the Murderbot Diaries, and I'm going to keep complaining about that forever. Let's see if I can move this. That light was making weird flickers before, but I want to put my legs down. Also, that dramatis personae at the start of the book that I read in the other video, which I didn't reread for this one, we got told the name of a character named Menless, as though he's going to be important, but he's dead already, so it's like, why did you waste my fucking time with that? Why is there a dramatis personae at the start of the book telling us shit about the characters that we should know when they get introduced? This is all very distressing, the character has to say, because their distress is not in any way conveyed through the fucking narration. Kai made a noise of displeasure at this massive understatement. It's not an understatement, though, because neither of you are reacting like you're in distress. Again, we're just treating this like it's a sequel to a book everybody's already fucking read. A good plan, Ziti said. She took his hand between both of hers and said, well, this is all very distressing. Kai made a noise of displeasure at this massive understatement and slumped down so he could put his head on her shoulder. They had known it might be unwise to go to the court of the Rising World Coalition renewal, but it would have been equally unwise not to appear in answer to Bashat's summons. And things were going so well, and it's like, why are you talking about these things like this is a book we've already read and this is book 2? We're randomly getting something. There's a way to place a heart pearl without asking for consent. I'm not sure it would work on a mortal, but on me. If the pearl was formed and then ground up in water or wine, if I drank it, it would take a while to form and it would depend on a lot of things. But it's a possibility. Because the last thing he remembers is drinking wine with a friend/lover, maybe. And he could hear the worried frown in Zidi's voice. If someone did that, if he used it to put me under his will, and if then he drowned me, his throat had gone tight, if that is what happened. Those are all very abrupt sentences. And if then he drowned me. Oh, Kai. There was too much sympathy in Zidi's tone now, and he forced himself to laugh. It came out more like a sardonic squawk. He said, I'm starting to think that a mortal prince heir who wanted to consort with a demon in human form may not be a completely trustworthy person. Zidi sighed again. You think? The first one we met was... Kai's smile was bitter. He was an exception. All right. I don't know if this is chapter 3 now. Or would this be... Hold on, let me go back. Chapter 3, but it's not called chapter 3. It's called The Past, The Beginning. There's a random thingamajig at the start of this. I'll just read it. I dream of the world as it was. Sunay are Rick and 100 caravans a day from the north, with silks and ice wine and amber and books, canal barges from the ports of Arkai, with the treasures and curiosities of the archipelagos, the people familiar and strange, merchants from Nibet. There's no pronunciation guide. Enelin scholars and diplomats, sailors of Arathi and Palm, even a solitary grass king from the far west. The feud, the music, the laughter. They say that Selassie, the satirist, saw what was coming and flushed the birds from their cages in the forum garden. But they all fell from the sky when the voice of the hierarch's well rose. Letter found in the Benes Arik archives, attributed to an unnamed survivor of Sunay Arik. That's just at the start of this chapter, where we are now in the past, the beginning. And now we're calling the one thing the Under-Earth, with no capitalization at all. Okay, so I guess Kai is a little baby living with some indigenous coded people called the Sereti, and they call him Kai Enna because he's in a kid's body whose name was Enna. And I guess they've adopted him. And by a baby, I mean a kid, not a baby baby. Let me preheat the oven so I can make food while I'm reading. Also, her asking, like, stating, oh, it says interesting thing about this little girl's character that she's less terrified and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, but I do need an explanation for why she watches like 5 people get completely massacred in front of her and has almost no reaction. You are going to have to explain that. Go away, fruit fly. So, okay, we have one disadvantage so far for Kai. It's that horses don't like him because he's a demon and they can smell him. That's at least one disadvantage. Not really a big deal because there will probably be some magical horses that like him or something so that they never have to worry about how they have to walk everywhere because they can't use horses. They apparently have something called spirit workers that purify their water for them at this just general town. Adeni, which is little kid Kai's friend, said, "So who are you going to marry?" Kai laughed. "Nobody. I'm only supposed to have babies." Grandmother had explained that on the first day Kai had awoken in late Enna's body. The clan hoped for at least one baby, would be pleased for more, but Kai was absolutely not to do anything that might cause a baby for 3 more full rounds of the seasons. It wasn't because they were waiting for Enna to change. Her body would stay as it was at the moment of her death until Kai left it. But grandmother said the delay was to make sure Kai understood mortal life. He had 1 more season to go, though he felt he understood it pretty well at this point. So they want this demon who's in the body of a child to still produce babies in the body of a fucking child. Presumably the body will be the one getting pregnant. Yeah, they said her body. And knowing Martha Wells, she's not trans. So that's fucking gross. These indigenous coded people are totally fine with pedophilia. Way to go, Martha Wells. And then Adeni clearly has a crush on Kai or Enna's body. And he is half a season round older than Enna's body. That's such a weird statement. Let me just read this to you. Adeni pulled his quiver higher on his shoulder. Right, but that doesn't mean you can't marry someone, too. He flicked a quick smile at Kai, somehow shyer than his usual broad grin. He was half a season round older than Enna's body and had been the first one to grab Kai's arm and drag him outside after the awakening ceremony. They had run all the way around Kent Dessa under the giant cable web of the outer supports. What does that fucking mean? Are you telling me that this kid, who is his friend, has had a crush on this body since before the original owner, Enna, died, and then literally ran off with Kai the second he was possessing Enna's body, and is now hinting that he wants to marry Kai and Enna's body? That's fucking creepy. Marry who? Kai demanded. Then he had a sudden suspicion. Marry you? Well, me and Vara and Eludi. These were two other cousins. Also, they're all cousins, so it's like, what in the fuck? Denny wants him to think about it. Why do these people want him to have babies and get pregnant in the body of a child? Like, how many babies did they say they're expected for him to have? Grandmother, no name, just grandmother, had explained that on the first day Kai had woken in Anna's body, the clan hoped for at least one baby, and would be pleased for more. They literally want this child's body to produce babies for them. That gets revealed on page 29 for the record. They just got to the river that they were walking to without any description, just dialogue and stuff, and discovered that the temporary rope bridge, got destroyed in a storm last night that nobody noticed for some reason. There's this dialogue. Well, this is shitty. It's just really fucking funny and out of place for them to suddenly be swearing. Denny's like, we can just wade across, and then Kai's like, I can't. Did you forget? I'm a demon. Water doesn't hurt, does it? Denny poked Kai in the shoulder. I've seen you take baths. No, it just feels strange when it's between me and the ground. So, he's not actually weak to water. It doesn't actually hurt him. It just feels weird. And the way they're talking, they will get in serious trouble. They've agreed to cross the river, even though it'll feel weird, and apparently that's something they'll get in a lot of trouble for if anybody finds out. I am pet sitting, and these people have the filthiest oven I've ever seen. It smells like a fireplace. Where was I? Yeah, he's just walking in the river, and it's totally fine. It's not hurting him at all. It feels weird, but it's not, like, freezing him in place. He's not paralyzed. He's not overcome with absolute pure panic. It's just fine. He doesn't like the idea of possibly getting shoved over as a prank, but he's fine. So the literal only disadvantage he has so far that he can't just overcome by just going is horses don't like him. Every time Kai stepped onto a sandbar or climbed atop a tree trunk, his connection to the underneath, the under earth. I don't know if. Let me go back to the start and look through that. Apparently, I've been reading that wrong the entire time. I was reading it as underneath. It's under earth in the Dramatis Personae. So, why would you do that? Every time he stepped onto a sandbar or climbed atop a tree trunk, his connection to the under-earth returned, a warm flicker under his skin. This wasn't as hard as he had expected, and he was glad Adeni had talked him into it, so it's literally not actually a disadvantage. So some monster, a gray shape, rose up to tower over them. It opened a round mouth with a rictus of fangs and slammed the shattered tree aside. I'll move it back here, maybe. I wish I had something actual to prop this up on, but whatever. These are just weird sentence structures. He shouldn't have been able to drain that beast, and yet. Period. And in water, too. Period. A mortal person from, I presume, another clan is asking, why was he placed in the body of a small youth? So, and the answer is because he is a youth, and the original child was dying, and they wanted to honor her family. But okay, so they expect not only the child's body to produce babies, which means some fucking adult is going to have sex with the body of a child. This demon in the body of this child is also a young, like there's a small youth. That's what they're describing it as, a small youth. How old is this child? And then they're saying they put him in the body of a child because he is a child. So why is Martha Wells doing this? This isn't, nobody seems to have a fucking problem with this. So it's pedophilia all the way through because he's not even an adult. What the fuck? And they want him, everybody here knows that he is a child in the body of a child with the mind of a child, and they want him to get pregnant and make babies for them because the body he is in is female. Hold on, let me just Immortal Rinaldi Elder asked, but why was he placed in the body of a small youth? Because he is a youth. Grandmother stroked his hair, and Enna was dying, and the honor was due to her line. Enna's elders eyed the Rinaldi without favor, so everybody's getting pissy at the one person just asking a basic question of why did you put this demon in the body of a young child? Which means Martha Wells wants us to think that the person asking, why did you put this demon in the body of a small child? She wants you to think that that person is a bad and evil and disrespectful for asking a basic fucking question. Martha Wells does this a lot. And they're saying that that kind of animal isn't native here and it was under a spell, which they're calling... It was under Geas. Geas. No pronunciation offered at all. Yeah, Denny died from the random animal attack that we don't actually get a description for. Why are you telling us that? We go from being in the moment To then we interrupt it with, Kyne knew it had been the death of his mortal cousin, which he's supposed to marry. But he hadn't known had been the beginning of the death of the Sereti, that Arathi had already fallen and the Hierarch's forces were on their way. Like, what? You could have just not said that part. Chapter 3. And we're back in the enslaved shell whale that we're not freeing until it does what they want. We're on page 36 for the record. This fruit fly needs to go away. No, it's not. We're saying that the whale thinks of the world as large objects, as islands, as large objects that blocked currents, which was hard to translate into anything that could be expressed on a paper map. And it's like, that wouldn't be difficult at all. You just draw the fucking currents, and where there's no currents, there's land. From below, Zidi was giving Sandra a history lesson because she couldn't stand ignorance. And they really use demons to fight their wars? Sanja asks. Zidi says, no, that was another lie. They enslaved demons and witches as familiars to give to their expositors to help them focus their power. That's not the same thing? Hold on, because I'm getting a headache, so I'm getting a thingy. You can just sit there. Ginger hard candy. So didn't they use demons to fight their wars? No, they just used demons and witches to fight their wars. Okay. What are you doing? It's Lightning the husky. Yodeling over there. What are you doing? You just yodeling? What are you doing? You're not gonna do it? You're not even yodeling at anybody in particular. What are you doing? What are you doing? Look at those big paws. What are you doing? You're silly. He's bored, but they can't really play outside because it just rained, like literally torrential, starting like instants. So they're saying that somebody sealed the connections to the Underearth, which is where all the demons and apparently imps live. And there's some cracks in it, but it's still sealed. So with the little pearl of his hardened blood that is in Zidi's heart, he can not only send her thoughts, so they have internal walkie-talkies, he can like send out a little thingy, and then she can let him see through her eyes. Presumably, since it's a big deal that that his other last body had a pearl put in it against his will. Hold on. What was the last fucking body called? There he goes again, yodeling. He's just draped on the couch over there, yodeling like that. So was the body that was just trapped in a coffin and killed Enna, the like little girl? You sound like a demon. I'm surprised the other two aren't joining in yet. There they go. always stop very abruptly, too. You guys are silly. And Lightning taught the other two to howl. They never did this before he got here. I guess we've just forgotten that Sandra apparently has broken toes, because nothing has been mentioned of that ever. Zede's tone turned brisk. Now, do you want to hear more about the fall of the hierarchs and the rise of the Reich Prince heirs and the Rising World Alliance? Sandra said, yes, please. So they've come to some volcanic island, which is a conduit to the Underearth, so that Kai can talk to somebody called the Overlord with a capital O, even though Underearth is not capitalized. We keep getting references to witches with a capital W, and they can send their souls down to the Underearth. We've just been informed that Kai used to have a body down there, but that was killed, so now he just has to send his mind down, like witches do. So the Overlord is sitting on a throne made of skulls, which are her family members that she keeps for sentimental reasons. She had pale horns curving back from her head, a muscular, scaled body ending in a long, powerful tail that spilled off the throne, the tip a narrow spade shape that flicked impatiently. Her pale wings, the texture of mortal skin, were half furled. He calls her Overlord, and she says, "Since you're still alive, you can call me Mother." So this is his mom. Sometimes they just be formal for diplomatic reasons. Since they're being friendly, others crept up to the pavilion or dropped down from its eaves. They were smaller versions of Mother, which is just has a capital M. We're not referring to him as his mother, her as his mother, just Mother with a capital M, with blue or black shading on their wings. Some had tails split into 2 or 3 or more segments. Some even had human-like legs, but heavy dark claws on their feet. Vicerite, one of Kai's siblings, landed beside Mother's throne and crouched at its foot. Mother tilted her head skeptically and said, "Surely this was not a surprise to find yourself in a trap, considering the mortals you associate with." So his mom is trying to pressure him into also getting married to make half-mortal babies for people. His mom says, "Stop being overdramatic." And we get the line, "Kai would have loved to if dramatic things would stop happening to him." I guess that's supposed to be funny. I guess the mom is supposed to have a snake tail instead of legs. That wasn't properly explained, but whatever. This is annoying. I don't know why we're interrupting the story to go chat and hang out with people in the Underearth. As like it's just a casual visit. Kai curled up beside her on the cushions, feeling the tightness around his heart ease for the first time since he had woken in his glass coffin. But again, his supposed distress that we are just keep repeatedly being told that he is in is not actually expressed through the narration at all. We are never shown him being in any kind of distress or unease. We're just told, oh, he's not distressed anymore. Because he's sitting with grandmother with a capital G who doesn't have any other name. Now I have questions. This is a fantasy world, but they have both ginger and almond because they're making ginger almond tea. But whatever. He's asking grandmother to just scry. We're not using the word scry though. Just scry on their ZD's family members to make sure they're okay. She says blah blah blah. Leica, go, which is one of the servants' names. Go and bring a seeing bowl. We'll summon some wraithlings. Wraithlings. So whatever. And now we're learning that Ta-Ren, which seems to be ZD's wife or partner, her name is Taran Stargard. She's an immortal marshal with capital I, capital M. This is just reading like it's the sequel to a book that doesn't fucking exist. Grandmother frowned. I never understood why a witch like ZD, so this is the first time we get an inkling that ZD's a fucking witch with a capital W. Where'd it go? I never understood why a witch like ZD wanted to lie with a hierarch's dog. Kai was patient. Ta-Ren betrayed the hierarchs. That's why they call her the Fallen with a capital F to be edgy. Like this is sounding like this is supposed to be the summary that you get at the start of a book in a long-running series, when this is the sequel to the first book, where all the shit that they're referencing happened. away, fruit fly. We get another name for a spell, which is a cantrip. So they're saying you would need a strong binding cantrip to trap an immortal marshal somewhere. And Kai is like, but if somewhere strong enough to contain a witch exists, I would know about it. For some reason. In the entire fucking planet, man. That's such a weird sentence structure. She paused while the servant stood to hand them both cups of the ginger milk. Period. Kai accepted his, and the scent was like a breath of childhood. Period. Meeting grandmother here for the first time when she had visited in mortal form, in a place dreamed to look like her rooms in the tent of Contessa Soretti. Period. It's just weird. And again, we're just doing this thing where the characters just sit around talking about the problem and not in a way that's engaging in any way. It's just there to fill up the fucking page count. We're just doing this. We're just sitting around discussing how you can trap an immortal marshal, a thing we have no context for. And it's annoying. We're not even waiting. This isn't even just waiting until they bring back the little scrying pool thing that somebody was told to go get. They're just speculating. Based on what? Nothing? Now they've finally brought in the fucking scrying ball. The servant Lika, Lika, however that's supposed to be pronounced, returned carrying a bowl of water. The others hastened to remove the plates and cups from the stand so Lika could set the bowl down. That could have just been so she could put the bowl down. All the servants gathered around, and Kai sat up to see better. Floating just above the surface of the bowl was a wraithling. Leica said, "This wraithling lives above the mass grave along the ruins of an old western trade road in San Salaeus, up from what used to be the port of Lasnas." None of these names make any sense to us and mean nothing. It looked like wisps of gauzy cloud wrapped around a narrow body with a lot of spiny legs and arms, its head a diamond shape with tiny green spots for eyes. The little creatures had an attraction for altars, sanctuaries, tombs, and graves. They were generally harmless unless abused. Leica had summoned it, so she would have to do the questioning. There should have just been a comma there. Leica had summoned it, comma, so she would have to do the questioning. Also, why did she summon it? She was just told to go bring the bowl. I thought grandmother was supposed to be doing this shit, but whatever. Leica had summoned it, there's no comma, so she would have to do the questioning. Grandmother motioned for Kai to speak, and he said, "Ask if it can see Avagantrum." Now they were close to answers. His heart was starting to pound from nerves, and he swallowed the tension down. Allowing his agitation to show wouldn't help Leica concentrate. And again, we've been given nothing in the anything besides these little snippets of, oh, he was nervous, to show that he's nervous. We're just getting told that. Now we're just getting told that Kai is so concerned about the people, presumably at this house that's called Avagantrum. He's too scared to ask if there's any recent ghosts visible. Now we told they also have olives, because grandmother takes a little olive cake. We get a description of somebody. The Wraithling is describing somebody as wearing women's clothing, and then they also just happen to be a woman, which Kai confirms. So we can't even get somebody gender non-conforming. Okay, so the little wraithling that they are summoning is able to go into the house called Avagantrum and is talking to somebody in the garden and confirming that nobody knew where they were. They assumed they were with somebody else and they disappeared months and months ago. And they don't know where the other two people are. And the person asks, "Uncle, are you all right?" "Tell her we're fine," Kai said, even if it wasn't true, and would be less true once Ziti heard that Taran wasn't safe at home. And it's like, but you are all right. You are literally fine. Why are we acting like they're not fine? No, it's not like anybody remembers that Sanja apparently has broken fucking toes that weren't even healed magically. So whatever, she's just walking around on broken toes. Everybody forgot that part. Okay, so they let that wraithling go so it doesn't get tired. This is such a weird little setup here. Kai's sister, whose name's Vi, says, "You're going back up there, aren't you?" And then we get this response with no dialogue. "Kai couldn't live down here, comma, not as the demon prince he no longer was, comma, and not with grandmother as a part human, comma, insulated in the perpetual past of a world he had seen violently destroyed, period. And Vi had never lived in the upper world, comma, would never understand what having a mortal family was like, period." It's just weird. Okay. Pausing to eat the food.